Jamie from Inky&Scrappy, back with my Brewing Up Creativity class. It's one that I teach locally in my studio, and then because, you know, I have it all done, I do it for you on YouTube as well. So for this one, we're doing a platform pop-up and doing the little box. I will show you, you know, some tips and tricks to get that front to meet in the middle without having to use like 2 pieces of paper and try to line it up and die cut properly. So other than that, you know, we'll get started. So this was my first one, you know, my demo one. So you see that my stamping on this one isn't maybe where I should put it, and of course I'll move things around a little bit. I will say with this one I struggled, and I continue to struggle with that Grassy hill die for the platform, or for the ta-da diorama. I probably won't be using that a whole lot because it doesn't always go back in very great. I did add the little, whoops, my front's off just a little bit. I did add the little pull tabs on the side, just using a die from one of Lawn Fawn's pull tab die sets. So, you know, it doesn't come with that one, but it usually has an arrow there, which you could definitely replace with a different arrow piece, or just put that in or put them in backwards. I just did the little hearts because it went with my heart frame on this one. So I just popped them on and kind of left them hang out just a little bit. And then of course we did a card base on this one, where my original one didn't have the card base on yet. So we'll kind of go over some of those options. So this is video 2. So in the first video I showed the inking up of my images. I used the stencils for these. I don't know if I'll be buying any more of the stencils just because I like coloring better. They do work for larger images pretty good. The littler stuff I would probably prefer to just color with my alcohol markers in that respect. So for the ta-da diorama, I have everything cut already for you, so I'll kind of go over some of the pieces. So for my actual piece that's going to meet in the middle, I just cut 1 piece of paper using my trimmer. I don't use the die set for this one, and we go with 1, 2, 3, 4 4.5 inches wide by 1, 2, 3 3, and I think it's like an 1/8, 3 1/8 tall. I think 1, 2, 3. I think it's 3 1/8. Basically, I just, every time I do it, I just take this piece and I match it on my cutter and, you know, make it work. I do have it marked on one of my cutters, I do believe. Yeah, see, I just have it marked here. So I have it marked there, and then when I do my cut it in half, I have it marked on there. So if that's something that you do a lot of, you know, I just put the ticks on there and it makes it pretty fast, quick, and easy. But that's how I get them to meet in the middle and still have, you know, my words go across them, or images. I do that quite frequently. I also use the inside, or the stitched rectangle dies. I think this is the second largest one in the big stack from Lawn Fawn. It fits the platform pop-up perfectly, so, you know, it allows me to cut more quickly, I guess, when I do card class stuff. And I like the fact that it doesn't have the little tab things on there, but it really doesn't matter. Either one works. And then of course I used the heart inside out stitched or the heart add-on for the ta-da diorama. The Grassy hillside pieces, which they get stuck, quite frankly. It's better if you have your card vertical and not laying down when you open and close it, because they get stuck the other way. The other piece that I add on to this one that's not in the norm, well, it's in the die set, but it's not like a technical one. So I take an extra piece of paper and I just die cut kind of like this section out without the holes, right? So I just kind of die cut this part out, and then I cut down on, you don't need the whole thing, you really just need where this is and like 1/2 inch on both sides. So that's what this piece is, and then I just cut them down into about a half-inch pieces, half to a quarter-inch pieces. As long as they're not any thicker than this piece, they work really well. So that helps to hold on my front piece from sliding around. It was my biggest, I don't know, pain when the Ta-Da diorama first came out, and I hated the fact that this piece would just kind of willy-nilly slide around and my pull tab parts would come out. And so I didn't want it when I send it, as I, you know, see, this is what I mean when it does not always go very well. So when I'd send it, if it shifted and my recipient doesn't know, you know, they haven't all done a Ta-Da diorama before, so I didn't want them to be confused or to try to have to figure out how to put it back together. And so adding those little pieces on there, I will get to where we put them and how I adhere them so they don't hinder the movement of the Ta-Da diorama, but they hold that card front, or that front piece of the Ta-Da diorama on there pretty close to where they need to be almost all the time. You know, sometimes my gluing maybe isn't exactly on, but they do wiggle a little bit, but it's usually within reason, so you can just kind of reshift and get them to go back on. So let's get started. This one shouldn't take us a whole lot of time, you know, except for I like to talk, so there's always that. So to start with this one, I'm going to do pink clouds on this one today instead of the teal, because I thought it was fun to pull in some pink. Do I still have teal on my thing? Probably. I'm actually going to bring in an Oxide instead. So I'm going to bring in Kitsch Flamingo for this one. It really doesn't matter. You could use a dye ink. I like to switch it up from time to time. Let's see. One side is going to be blue and one side is going to be not. Jamie not cleaning her stencils off. It's a regular around here. So, you know, if this hurts your head, I'm sorry. I actually flipped it over, so I'm not mixing ink colors. I'm just using the reverse side that doesn't have any ink on it. So if I get a little bit of ink transfer from the back side on, I'm not going to worry about it. It'd actually probably give a fairly cool effect. So I'm just going to kind of continue on down my front here. I usually tap off on my stencil, and then with a light hand, I don't want to put too much pressure on it. It's actually really just a really light hand, and just kind of doing that circular motion. Hold your stencil in place. And if I need to come back and pick up a little bit more ink, I can revisit that little puddle I left behind on my stamp, or on my stencil, I should say. And we'll do one more. You're not going to see this one for the most part, but it's there. All right, and then I'm just going to come in with my blending brush and kind of hit just that bottom, so it's not stark white. At this point, if you want to add a second color, well, we can do it. If you want to add a second color, I would suggest coming in with a dye ink if you're going to do it on top of your Oxide ink. If you want to add, maybe, I like doing this trick a lot where you just add like maybe some purple onto the top of the clouds, so they're not going to be just pink and white. They're going to have like that little purple tinge to them. I probably should have gone with a little bit darker color, but this will work. And so then you get a little hint of purple in there, but your pink is going to be more predominant than your purple is going to be. I hope that makes sense. Anyways, it's one that I do frequently, and I don't usually talk about it a lot, but I figured I'd share that one with you today. See, I told you it'll be a quick card, but it really won't be a quick card because, yeah, I talk too much. Okay, so I have my base piece done. Now it's just a matter of assembly. So, of course, we have all the little fold lines to fold on. So I'm going to start with these pieces. You can do double-sided score style adhesive. I tend to just grab my liquid glue. It makes life a little bit, I don't know. I just feel it holds everything on a little bit better. And so even if I do the double-sided score tape, I usually use the liquid adhesive as well. So for this one, for these pieces, they have a little notch in them. and you can just line up the notch to the notch. It doesn't have to be exact, so don't feel like if you move them over a little bit too far, it's not going to work. It should work okay. It's just a matter of your side pieces might open a little farther than they're supposed to or they need to. So if you line them up perfectly, it should be about a 90-degree angle. So this is, of course, the back side of my piece here. And then I will just hold them for just a little bit to make sure that they are dry. Set that one off to the side. And then I will start with this one. So with this one, I'm just going to start with my folds on this one. I usually like to fold them both ways just because your crease gets a little bit better. It's totally personal preference on this one. Keep in mind that it's going to be opposite of what you think, right? So I have my first one, and then I will do my second one here. And you can go with just one fold if you want. I guess it probably doesn't need both. I just tend to go for both. All right, so this one and this one. And then we have our back piece, and those ones we will add in a little bit. So for this one, I'm going to just put glue or double-sided stick adhesive on this part right here. So I really don't, and I don't want to put too much close to the line. I do not want it to get onto this piece, but then I'm just going to line this one up, making sure that my little spots are down towards the bottom. And then I'm just going to try to center that one on there and as close, you know, like right on the edge, and then kind of center it. So there's a little bit of a sliver on the top and on the bottom, and try to make sure that it's close to the edge. And then I will do the same thing with the other side. Now, if you're a little bit off on these, you may need to trim them to get them to work. It happens to the best of us. So for this one, I usually butt it up in the middle. So if my first one was off a little bit, I usually try to butt this one up just to make sure that it's going to not hit in the middle. It tends to make it, I don't know, close. So it's perfect in the center, and you don't have to worry about one side overlapping the other. So on this one, you see it's like just slightly off, so maybe the side wasn't slightly on, you know, it could have been a little bit further to the side, but it works. And if you have too much overhang, you can always trim it just a teeny tiny little bit. Now for this one, we have it closed in this position, so it's basically just adding these right on top of my folds. You could definitely do this beforehand. I just usually do it at this point. Try to make my adhesive go close to the edge, maybe not all the way to the edge because I don't want it to ooze out. If you get any ooze out, just kind of wipe it with your finger quick so you don't have it sticking where it's not supposed to be sticking. I'll put that one down. And add this one, and I'll make sure that this one lines up with the other half, so my words that are in there kind of just go together. So the paper, the pattern paper I'm using is a really old, close to my heart. I think it's a Valentine's one, to be honest. I just liked the words, the text, and then of course it had some pinks on it. So different, every piece was a little bit different, which is fine. And then we have our, technically we have our ta-da for the most part done, right? So for my little hill pieces here, I'm going to insert the one and then we're going to stamp the other one first. And I cheat and only fold down one side if I can get away with it. Sometimes you can't get away with it, but sometimes you can get away with slipping in one, you know, folding one, slipping it in, pulling it up, and kind of making it fit, especially on these where it's a hill. And as the hills get stuck again, because, yep, the grassy leaves just, or the grassy blades just aren't very friendly with those little slots. So we have the first one done. I will come in with the second one and we'll grab a stamp platform of some sort. Now for this one, I kind of want to make sure, and you can definitely put it all together and then take it all apart. I try to not take it apart more than I have to. So for this one, we're going to come in here. So I kind of want my sentiment to be kind of in the center up on top here, just so you can read it better than my first card ended up being. You know, it happens. It's kind of why I do, you know, trial runs. Let me find. So on the outside, I want to do, well, since we're going to stamp, we'll stamp both of them. So I hope your day is on this little piece here, and then I'll do literally the best on this one. And I'm going to put the literally the best towards the top. You could definitely curve it if you wanted to. I think I'm going to go on the side of caution and not curve it, just because I'm being lazy. Now if you watch the other one, I used this one for that piece there, and so it's not going to be the same because it's a different die, but I should be able to squeak this one in here. It just makes it a little bit easier for holding it in place. Let's see if I can get this in there. There we go. So it fits in this slot, so I'm just going to kind of tuck it in there. I'm not really worried about the ends not being where they need to be. I can line it up here, and I don't have to worry about it slipping and moving around with that tiny little already die cut piece. I die cut them just for class already, just because it's easier. But if you have a die that's solid and doesn't allow you to see through, that's a great cheat for that type of thing. So for this one, I'm going to come in with my VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And add that to both of my sentiments. And then we will pop those down. And we can pull this one up. And if you can't get it with your finger because it's sticky, which it is, using a reverse tweezers or a tweezer style tool works well. And then I'll set that one off to the side quick. So we have both of our sentiments already stamped. And then we will pop this one into place. And you can definitely add your images if you would prefer to add your images before you pop them in. I like to see exactly where they're going to be when I have them in my cards, so I tend to do them this way. I usually like to pop those both in before I add my images, just because I like to be able to see the placement a little bit better in the card. If you're doing multiples, sometimes it's easier to do them before you put them in, and then of course you can pop them in and out in that regard. So at this point, I am going to add on my front here, just because that heart kind of limits my movements per se. And so now it's just a matter of feeding my little slots into the little tabs on the side, or the tab, I guess they're the tabs, huh? The tabs into the little, I don't know, are they called holders? Those pieces. And it moves a little bit rough, so I might end up trimming off just a little bit. The other thing on this one is I used a thinner piece of cardstock on the front, which is not my normal. Usually I use a heavyweight, like Nina Classic Crest or Accent Opaque in like the 100 at least 100 weight, because I find that the extra weight kind of decreases the amount that it might bow on it. And so, but let's show you a quick tip if it's not going quite as planned. You can definitely just trim off a little teeny tiny piece and it should work and go through there a lot better, especially when you're doing that second layer on top of this piece. It can get a little bit tight there. This side is probably okay, but I'm just going to trim it just a little bit to make it move as easily as the other one. And you don't need to trim off a whole lot, just a teeny tiny bit. And some of that could have been with my top piece that I added on, may not have been cut exactly to size. What? Jamie didn't cut a straight line? Impressive, right? It happens all the time around here. I was cutting paper the other day and I didn't have my glasses on and I was like, gosh, this paper just looks like way crooked. And I realized it's probably because I don't have my glasses on and I have astigmatism, and so it just makes the paper look really crooked. So I guess I have to wear my glasses when I'm cutting paper from here on out. Will I? It'll depend on the day and prevailing wind. I'm going to add in my sentiment right away here, just because it's already done. So for this one, when we're talking to Diorama, there's a few limitations, and it has to do with how the mechanism works, right? So we have it closed. You can see that you get, here we go. You see you get about an inch, maybe an inch and a half on that first platform. That can sit above where your actual grass line is or your slots are. So you see where the slot is, and that is your height. So I would keep it kind of in between there. And then with that back one, you get about maybe, let's see, about 2.5 inches that you get to play with on that back one here. So keep in mind, like on this one, I have this one over. It's not, there's really not that much on there, which is fine. But on my first one that I did, I put my little, I wanted my little library in the middle, and then I realized that my little critter was going to sit like right in front of him, and so I put him off to the side. Well, the issue with that one is, so it's going to work, right? But it sticks out on this side a little bit because he needs to be in. He needs to stay squeezed in that little spot. So either I had to move him into the center on this one and move my library, or I just switched my characters and put the little worm on the inside instead and put him on the front, and it worked. I don't know, it's cute. I like it. It worked. So I will start with kind of gluing my little worm here onto my book. The little worm reminds me of Richard Scarry's little critter books, or the little, is it the little, I don't know if it's not little critter like little critter. It's like his little town books, you know, with a little worm everywhere. That's what it reminds me of. All right, I'm gonna go from the front. The reverse tweezer works really well on this one, especially when you're trying to get places that, you know, maybe your pork chop fingers don't want to reach. Let's just go through the front. I forget that this isn't like, so I switched from glitter art glue to Barely Art glue just for my refill. And Barely Art glue takes a little longer to dry than glitter art glue. Have I adjusted properly yet? No, not so much so. So I'm going to put this one just off to the side a little bit. And here's where you could definitely, you can do a full scene in the back, like on the back panel, and you don't have to worry about it hitting or closing or all of the things. But it's just those two levels of the grass or the hills in there that you need to worry about hitting. And so I just make sure that it closes well. Well, okay, with this one we got to stand it up and then make sure it closes well. So we're still getting the closure there. I'll pop it back open because, you know, let's look at the cute stuff. And then, of course, if I put glue on a spot that I'm not supposed to have glue on my little images here, it can dry before, oh, and this one didn't cut out quite properly. Okay. So I'm going to add that in there. I think I was pretty good on not gluing the ears there. And then I will add the little skunk to the other side. This time not so much because, yep, I forgot. And so I usually just pick it up with my finger on the back side. Nobody needs to know. And so that pretty much completes our front, right? Or our diorama. But we're going to add in those little extras that we talked about earlier. So I'm going to add in, I fold on both of the lines that you would for your normal ta-da part, right? So I'll do that on both of them. I've got my folds there, so you see how both of them will fit perfectly in there. They kind of work in that regard. And so then I take it and I fold it in half again, just to get my middle crease. And this allows that piece to fold flat when the card is closed, and it'll pop open when the card gets pulled open. And so for this one, so it kind of looks like a little bird. I usually grab it by the folded part here, and I'm gonna close this one back up and try to center, make sure that it's where you want it on the center part, because this will have a little bit to do with if it wiggles on you, like my other one. And I just add, you can add glue to one side or you can add glue to both sides. It's totally up to you. I usually do them both at the same time. But I'm going to take this one and I put it right on that bracket. So I don't want it to touch my side piece here, and I don't want it to touch my front piece. And then it's just going to go onto the other side of that bracket. So I'll just fold that down, and then I just hold it until the glue's dried. You could definitely do some double-sided stick tape if that is your preference. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the other one again, just adding a little bit of glue on there, bending this one over, sticking it to the top. You could probably stick it on the bottom as well, if that's, you know, if you'd prefer it. Well, no, because you don't want to run into your bottom things, right? But if you are doing a, say you have clouds in there instead, put it on the opposite side as your I don't know, what are those called? Your floating pieces are, and you won't have any problems with your mechanism still working all right and proper, and it doesn't get in the way. So if you had clouds, of course it'd be like this way. Well, then it would just be on the bottom as opposed to the top. Ooh, and I had glue smushies. So make sure you don't have glue smushies that make it stick together, because you'll have issues. But so once it's all put together here, all right, a little grassy hill piece, pop on down there. Okay, so I have that done. Now I'm just gonna come back in and add my little extras here. And so these are just, I'm pretty sure from the, I want to say they're from the, which pull tab? The Let's Toast pull tab, or they're from, which one was I just using the other day? The Swish and Pop pull tab. Fawn has multiple pull tab features that kind of have the little pieces. Even just taking a little, you know, and then I just kind of line it up so it looks like it's fitting in there. And you could definitely do it, turn it the other way, and then you don't have that little arrow. If you don't want that little arrow, you can fill that little arrow in with a teal piece, like, you know, another color, or you could just fill it in with the pop-outs from this one. So I usually just squeeze it on there, line it up, and then I just kind of squeeze and hold until it's where I want it to be. And for this one, I don't know if I have pink ones cut. So I'm just going to pop in those little teal ones at the moment, and then I'll look for hearts in a little bit. So you definitely pop them in with a different color there. I'll find the little hearts in a little bit. So for my card base on this one, you can definitely take an A2 card base and you can pop it on there. The other option that you have is to cut a card base down to 1, 2, 3 and 3/8 by 5.5. Would get you a proper card base for this one. So I think it ended up being, what did I cut it at? 7. I think I ended up cutting it at 7.5 because it ends up being a little bit bigger than my card front. Is that how I did that one? Let me think. I think that's how I did that one. So I think I did it at 7 inches by 4.5. So 4.5 wide by 7 inches long. Scored at 3.5, and it gave me a fairly close to almost perfect size for my card to fit onto. You could definitely do another piece of pattern paper on the background and then have that. You could have put your sentiment on your card front and not had it on your big card piece if you're doing it on an A2 size. You have many options to go from there. I'll add that one later. I don't think we need to do the card base. So it's, you know, just putting it on that card base and that card front. And then for this one we did books because reality sucks. Which is a lot of fun, or a close to my heart. No, a ink road stamps sentiment. There's multiple book sentiments in my stash. So other than that, I will add in some glossy accents to my little skunks eyewear here. Maybe. I used it yesterday, so it's not going to work today, right? Stop being extra. Maybe. Okay. He wanted some extra love and attention today. He's got some really thick glasses. So I put glossy accents on him. I will not put glossy accents on the little worm on the inside just because I don't want to risk it getting all stuck together. I would say ask me how I know, but I actually haven't done that yet, so I've done okay with it. You could definitely go with purple. Let's just cut this one down. Maybe. No, I'll do that later. Let's find those hearts. So I have my card base cut down to 4.5 wide by 7 inches long, and then I'm going to score it at that 3.5 inch mark. I have all the tools, but I use my nails instead because, you know, old habits die hard. Okay, So there is my card base. Let's go with, what do I want for my inside sentiment? I should probably do a birthday card because oh, I could probably do sorry this card is overdue because I'm always late on birthday things all the time. I will do sorry this card is overdue and I need to find a happy birthday. I just grabbed the first set that has a big happy birthday in it. So I'm using the Ahoy Matey stamp set from Lawn Fawn for this one. Sorry, this card is overdue. Happy birthday. I think that'll work. Maybe. Does anyone else struggle with the little exclamation point in the Lawn Fawn sets, or is it just me? Like wants to stick to my finger all the time. I think we're pretty centered there. Pop that one out. Pretty straight. We'll call it good. And then I'm just coming in with that VersaFine again. And I'll stamp that one on there. Maybe I will stamp that one on there. There we go. Before I add my card front to it, I'm just going to add in those little hearts. I'm just going to add a drop of glue on both of those. Come on. And I'll just put the little heart. Okay, now that I can only find one heart and not both of them, of course. I'll find the other one. Maybe. I see a purple one. I don't see another pink one though. It's not stuck to my sleeve. Is it stuck to the back of that? It was. It's always the last place I think of looking, and that's always where I find I've been losing all of my pieces. It sticks to the back of my stamp platform. Okay, so I have that on there. Try not to touch the little eyeballs on my little guy. I'm going to bring in some score tape for this one, just because I want it to stick on there well and kind of right away. And I'll grab the smaller one here. As I stick to it. It's all good. Okay. I'm just going to go around the outside, add a little bit of glue on top of that double-sided stick tape. Just because I have the glossy accents on my little dude there, I don't want, oh, I cut it too big. I must have cut it just below 6 last time. Alright, well, I'm just going to line it up on top here and I will cut the excess off. It happens. Okay, well, I must have cut it at 6.5 inches. No, it must have been, what did I say, 7? So it must have been at 6.5 inches and scored at 3 1/4. Is that what I did it at? I must have. Interesting. Okay. I would usually wait for it to dry and run it through the trimmer, but we'll make it work. Maybe. It works better when the glue is dry. Okay. Okay, so I lied on my card base here. Let's see here. 6.5. A little over 6.5. But 6.5 would probably work. Okay. Note to to self. So a 6.5 scored at 3 1/4 will get you a pretty good size little card front or card for your base there. So there is our ta-da diorama today. I hope your day is literally the best as well, and that your grassy hillsides do not get stuck in your ta-da diorama. Okay. All right. Have an amazing rest of your day. Bye.